All right, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday. My name is Nick Reed, streaming live KSGF.com. We are also on YouTube. Look up Springfield's Talk 1041. You can find us there. And welcome to the show, everyone. We will be just days from now, Farm Fest 2025. We're going to be kicking it off by broadcasting live. Our sponsor, Brad Pistole, host of Safe Money Radio. Friday morning, we'll be doing the show there at the Ozark Empire Fairgrounds. And we will be there all weekend long. And of course, we'll do the morning show. And then Friday throughout the day, we're going to be bopping around. We're going to stop at the booth, if you will, the setup at Sandcrest Trailer Sales, Honda of the Ozarks, Wheeler Metals, Superior Metals, Springfield Livestock, Crown Power and Equipment, Race Brothers. And so we just, we're going to be all of our friends, all of our partners out there jumping around and checking in with you. And then I'm going to be doing the show Saturday, 10 a.m., I'm going to be taking Sarah's time slot out there with Brad Pistole, and we're going to do an hour of the show, and then kind of the same thing, visiting around, milling around, and visiting with some of our partners out there, and then we will do that on Sunday for a bit as well. So it's going to be a very busy Farm Fest. Hope to see many of you out there. And I think we'll have we'll have a booth. We're going to set up the table, if you will. Is going to be set up when you are facing that E-Plex entrance, and there's the double doors on the left, and then the double doors on the right. We will be to the left of the double doors on the left, correct?
That is correct.
It's where we were last time.
Yes.
So if you want to swing on by, then that's what we're going to be doing.
Get you some station swag.
Yeah, we're going to have some stickers. We're going to have some hand fans, and maybe some of those hypercolor cups that we were looking at in the office. Are we going to have those out there? Is that what those are for? Are they for whatever we want them?
I get to do some testing before we take them out there. But yes, they should be out there.
No, they're going to be fine.
Okay.
Just for what do you think they're going to poison people?
Well, I want to make sure they're dishwasher safe.
It says on the bottom.
You never know.
It says on the bottom, top rack dishwasher safe. You got to do top rack. Because
I'd like to test them.
All right, well, go ahead.
Well, I don't want anybody to get a cup and they're like, "Ooh, look at this KSGF cup. This is awesome. This is amazing. This is my new favorite cup."
You mean like the first round?
Yes. And then put it in the dishwasher and then it melts.
Supposed to be, but then upon further inspection, it did. They were not. These have it stamped on the bottom. So I trust the cup.
Okay.
But you go ahead and put it in the dishwasher because, hey, better safe than sorry.
That is true.
But yeah, a lot of that stuff is, they say top shelf because a lot of dishwashers have a heating element on the bottom to dry faster. And if you have oftentimes plastic or anything with any sort of labeling and you get it too close to that heating element, that could be a little too much heat. So if you're ever wondering why is it that it says top rack dishwasher safe, there you have it. Most of you probably already knew that. You thought this is the most
Look at this.
obvious
information station.
That's right. Speaking of information, the January 6th pipe bomb sitcho is one in which every time there are new revelations, it gets even more and more confusing. And Kash Patel, as director of the FBI, has turned over a great deal of information to Congress regarding interviews and timelines, and it's even more confusing now than it was before, leading to many to conclude. And I think right now, this is the most plausible explanation for what occurred there is the setting up of these, quote, bombs at the RNC and DNC to be actual bombs that technically could go off, but they were left in order to not actually go off for the purposes of keeping law enforcement, or at least all of law enforcement, focus off of the Capitol, to draw away from the Capitol. Be like, oh, we got a bigger problem over here. Now, why would they want to do it? Well, if you are one to look at the evidence and conclude that it's likely, or at least possible, that deep state folks were wanting January 6th to be what it was. They were wanting it to turn into something that they could then use in order to target Trump supporters, to target people that were not part of the left. This would certainly be one of the ways that one would do it. You make sure that you have a distraction occurring so that it increases the likelihood that these individuals, with which you've got 300, somewhere around 300 individuals in some capacity working on behalf of or for the FBI, have infiltrated the group, arguably riling people up in the Ray Epps fashion, rhetoric that he utilized the day before and the day of. And you have less law enforcement there to stop it because they're over here at the RNC and over there at the DNC checking out these bomb situations. So Just the News has a piece on the latest revelations and the questions, including the witness who found the bomb at the RNC and how her story completely does not jive with what it is that the FBI has said in the past. So that is just a bit of what we've got today. Government shutdown. There was this meeting at the White House. J.D. Vance came out, and he was like, yeah, I think Democrats are going to force a shutdown on this. Chuck Schumer talking about some mother crying to him because her daughter's going to die of cancer if Republicans don't, give Democrats what they want. I mean, it's just the same tired stuff. Nancy Pelosi, in what sounded like a drunken rat, dropped the F-bomb while talking about it. So we've got some of that gem of a gal audio for you this morning as well. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 417-447-KSGF. Now the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 61. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 87. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 87.
The timing of that story that Mike had about those murders in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
The timing of that is crazy because it was just a few weeks ago. I want to say it was a 4-part mini-series documentary about those murders.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We watched the first 2 episodes, and then, honestly, I don't... maybe it was... they were releasing one a week, if I recall. And I suspect we just forgot. That's the downside of when they do a release like that, which I understand why they do it. But when you aren't able to binge watch it and a week goes by and you just forget. So, I didn't see the last 2 episodes, but it was all built around this unsolved case in which you had these 2 girls that worked at a yogurt shop, and then one of the girls who worked there, her younger sister and a younger friend, who I think those 2 were both under the age of 16, came to visit them, essentially, I think as they were closing up shop. And then, the manager of the store, who also was a young girl, gets called in the middle of the night that there was a fire, and then these bodies were found in there, I believe tied up, and it's just been this long mystery as to, and you watch the the miniseries. I think it was on HBO Max.
That was my
or
next question.
Yeah, and maybe Hulu. It may be on multiple platforms. I think it's just called The Yogurt Shop Murders. And, they talk about how it's a little bit botched, and you get oftentimes on these little offshoots that are of interest. But, yeah, we saw the first two, so that's crazy that now. And now what I don't know is whether or not this latest revelation or solving of the case with the DNA has any sort of connection to the fact that this just came out, or if that is a coincidence. But yeah, it's pretty interesting and horrifying at the same time. Of course, anytime somebody's murdered, it's awful. But you're talking about young girls, and it's just particularly heinous crime. So yeah, Yogurt Shop Murders, I believe, is what it's called. If that's the sort of thing you have an interest in watching, particularly now that they apparently caught the guy. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, hunterhardscapes.com. Check out some of the premier work they do on my Facebook page, Nick Reed. You can see the outdoor living space they created for me and my family, which we utilize together, in terms of together, more than any room in the house now, something that we obviously did not do before, and they are the best at what they do. If you are looking for somebody to call up and have you some sort of patio done in a few weeks, this is probably not the route you're going to want to go. This is top level. This is not a crew that does a bunch of different things and then they can do the measuring, step it off a bit, head over to the big box store, pick up supplies. In fact, the supplies that they utilize and the product is high end to where it's not the sort of thing that you and I are going to be able to just purchase, or that they could even purchase at a big box store. And this is where a lot of the planning ahead of time comes. So you reach out, and Daniel Hunter is going to come visit with you, get your ideas, what you're wanting to do, come up with some plans, and get you on the calendar. And that may be in the spring. But what a great time to get started, particularly with tax returns. So plan ahead. hunterhardscapes.com, and again, under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. FBI lab report, contradictory witness statement inject fresh mystery into the unsolved J6 pipe bomb case. Now, essentially at this point, I don't want to say the conclusion, but I'm much closer to believing that this whole pipe bomb scenario was one that served a couple of purposes. and that is to just add to the overall chaos and sense that we're dealing with terrorism here. And when it comes to that, many people may say, well, I mean, why would they, if you don't know the background of this, on January 6th, there were pipe bombs with timers found outside the DNC and the RNC. Well, why would one be put outside of the RNC? Because does that not detract from the narrative that this is some Trump supporter? I would argue to the contrary. Frankly, it's not the worst idea if nefarious intent was behind it, because you had the election being declared for Joe Biden and the deep state fully recognizing that there were a lot of Republicans, I think we can all be honest about this, that were probably glad Trump was gone. They certainly did not welcome the idea of Trump running for re-election in 4 years, talking about the deep state. And so what better way to make it even more difficult for Trump to successfully run for re-election if the, Trump supporters were seen as like they're not just trying to kill Democrats, but they're trying to kill Republicans as well, in order to get Republican establishment to really push back against Trump running for re-election. And some of them did just that. Somewhat locally, that ding-dong former governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, running around, well, we can't have a felon in the White House. We can't have this guy January 6th. And they're all, so you get these establishment Republicans that played right into it. Part of that motivating factor would be to add to that overall sense that Trump supporters are dangerous. Trump is dangerous, not just to Democrats, but everybody. Look at his supporters are willing to kill everyone. Also, I believe that there's a very good chance it was done to draw law enforcement away from the Capitol so that what law enforcement was there, it would be easier for the rioters to overrun them. Now, this is what Just the News is reporting. The unsolved case of 2 pipe bombs planted at the major political party's headquarters in Washington, D.C. before the January 6th Capitol riot is facing new mystery after FBI Director Kash Patel transmitted to Congress the lab analysis and interviews with a key witness who is challenging the official timeline of events. Now, one of what I don't know about this, and perhaps I skipped over it, and as we read through this together, I will see the answer to it, but when it talks about the lab analysis and the interviews with a key witness, whether this is lab analysis and interviews that were done prior to Kash Patel becoming director of the FBI or since he has become the director of the FBI, because to me, that can, give you a different sense of things. The documents obtained by Just the News show that both bombs, one planted at the Democratic National Committee and the other at the Republican National Committee, were filled with chemical building blocks of black powder. Each was equipped with a 60-minute kitchen timer, and each did have destructive potential. But most notably, the FBI laboratory report never used the word viable to describe either bomb. Both devices never exploded and were discovered about 16 hours after the FBI claimed they were planted outside both major party headquarters. The lab report stated, when properly assembled and initiated, an IED of this sort can cause property damage, bodily injury, or death. The report offered no clear explanation why the bombs, which it called IEDs, did not detonate. The documents turned over by Patel to the House Judiciary Committee and its special January 6 investigative subcommittee also raised questions about the timeline. They include interviews with a key witness who said the RNC device still had 20 minutes remaining on its timer when she discovered it the following day. That witness raised the possibility that at least the RNC pipe bomb was planted just before it was discovered and not the night before, as the FBI claimed. The mystifying evidence now has congressional investigators exploring stunning new theories, including whether the bombs were made to look real but not to explode to create a diversion during the January 6th protest, or whether someone came back and set the timers later on one or both of the devices. Representative Barry Loudermouth, Republican Georgia, who's the chairman of the House Judiciary Subcommittee that's investigating the law enforcement response to January 6th, said the single greatest action that facilitated the protesters' ease of entry into the Capitol on January 6th was the placing of the pipe bombs and the diversionary effect that had on security resources, which would have otherwise been at the Capitol. So this is where this new potential explanation is largely coming from, is and some of it obviously is circumstantial, but it's the recognition that, and I think there's been a real lack of focus on this, that some of the lack of presence, and we know Trump offered the National Guard, that was declined. They didn't want that presence there. And then much of the other law enforcement presence that would have been there was not there because of these bombs. And Loudermilk is suggesting, or he's just flat out saying, that that was the greatest action of everything that occurred. That is what made it, more than anything else, possible for the, quote, riot to even occur in the first place because of lack of control. He added, after that day, the FBI was zealous in pursuing those trespassing at the Capitol, but quite lacking in their pursuit of whomever placed the pipe bombs. One focus of this committee will be highlighting the bizarre facts surrounding the pipe bomb case, hoping to bring much-needed clarity on the subject to the American people. Now, there's a bit more to the Just the News piece here, including what it is that the witness had told investigators. A witness who, by the way, had found and called security for the RNC saying, hey, I found this suspicious device, was not contacted by the FBI. It wasn't until she then followed up with them that they bothered to even have a conversation with her. So you add into the distraction from the Capitol on January 6th, the fact that the FBI and law enforcement seem to have absolutely no interest in any of this, really, just kind of going through the motions, is why increasingly it looks as if this was a diversionary tactic. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Zero Mars.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. The Foreman team, they do a whole lot more than just keep your AC and your furnace running smoothly. They can also help you out when it comes to your indoor air quality as well. Now, if you are a person who suffers from allergies, the Foreman team, they offer indoor air quality testing. And in a nutshell, this test, it can help kind of pinpoint what's triggering your symptoms, and then they can recommend solutions to help you breathe a little easier this fall, whether that's controlling the humidity in your home, maybe adding an air purifier, or tackling something a little more in-depth. And while they're there, go ahead and schedule your annual furnace inspection so you'll be ready when that cooler weather sets in. If you are ready to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com. Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 61. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 87. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 87.
All right, Just the News has this piece regarding FBI lab report and contradictory witness statement, just making the January 6th pipe bomb case even more confusing and mysterious because of contradictions of the facts. And what's been noted here by Representative Barry Loudermilk, who's chair of the House Judiciary Subcommittee investigating law enforcement response to January 6th, is that the single greatest action that facilitated the protesters' ease of entry into the Capitol on January 6th was the placing of those pipe bombs because so much security was diverted from the Capitol over to those pipe bombs. And increasingly, as the pipe bombs are sort of this Ray Epps element in which you have what is something that is the perfect narrative for the left, and that is how dangerous Trump supporters are, yet the total lack of interest in actually figuring out who's responsible for it. Ray Epps is a similar situation. This is a guy on tape all over the place encouraging people to storm the Capitol. I mean, you can see he's doing everything he can to rile him up, to the point that people were calling him out as being a Fed. They thought he was undercover. And he was listed as one of the top 10 most dangerous January 6ers, and we got to find this guy. And then all of a sudden, without explanation, he was deleted off of the government site of most wanted J6ers. And when we were told, oh no, he was no problem at all, he was fine. Really? There were people without trial who spent years in prison because they walked into the Capitol after being waved in by law enforcement. Didn't do a bit of harm, not a bit of violence. And this guy who actively, for at least 24 hours prior, was telling people we have to get inside that Capitol, even if it means getting arrested, we've got to do this. And that guy is the guy that Democrats are like, oh no, he's fine, nothing to worry about. He's the poster child for everything they wanted the world to believe about Trump supporters. Then the pipe bomb situation. What could be more violent and dangerous and terrorist than bombs? IEDs. This is exactly how they would love. They want people to envision Trump supporters wearing their MAGA hats down in their basements, putting these IEDs together. And so here they got him. And again, much like Ray Epps, no interest at all in actually figuring out who it is that was responsible for it. See, these are called clues. Now, the newly released internal memos are the most comprehensive insight to date into the Bureau's investigation of the pipe bombs. No suspect has been apprehended, despite the offer of a large reward and extensive time-stamped security footage and a detailed description of the suspect's attire, making the bombs one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of January 6th. After 4 years of frustration with limited cooperation from former Director Chris Wray's FBI, congressional investigators are pleased by the transparency offered by the new director. But Patel inherited the J6 pipe bomb case 4 years after the incident and was left with files that lay bare a shoddy initial investigation. For instance, federal law enforcement only interviewed the witness who discovered the RNC pipe bomb 5 days after the incident, and that was only after she submitted a tip to the FBI. The tipster wrote, quote, "I'm the person that discovered and alerted the guards to the pipe bomb found next to the RNC on January 6th. I wanted to identify myself in case there are additional details I can provide that might be useful to the investigation." Now, this woman wasn't secret. This is the woman that, upon discovering it, went to security at the RNC and was like, hey, there's something suspicious out here. So easily somebody that the FBI could have, within hours, had communication with. 5 days goes by, and she finally submits a tip because no one had any interest in talking with her. She went on to say, quote, "I did not see nor do I recognize the person of interest socialized in the media. However, I can't," which is very weird wording, by the way. I don't know why that strikes me as odd, but nonetheless. She continued, "However, I can confirm that the device must have been placed between 12 p.m. and 12:40 p.m. because it was not present when I went down to the area to start laundry, but it was present when I returned to continue laundry," she told the Bureau. So she's saying that she started her laundry at noon and then went back to continue at 12:40 And it was upon that return that she saw it when she had not seen it before. The woman is identified as a worker at the U.S. Commerce Department. Congressional investigators told Just the News they have confirmed that she also worked at the agency inside a program that coordinates first responders' communication for police agencies. Her tip raises questions about the discrepancy between the witness's timeline and the security footage obtained and released by the FBI. That footage shows that the suspect planted the bomb in an alley outside the RNC building at approximately 8:16 p.m. on the night of January 5th, according to the FBI. This is about 16 hours before the witness encountered the device, which she insisted was planted that afternoon, not the day before. While doing laundry on January 6th, the witness said she, quote, observed the suspicious device next to the exterior gate, according to the FBI summary of her interview. At first glance, she thought someone missed the trash can. After a more intentional look, she observed the wires, pipe, and clock attached to the device, which led her to believe it could be an explosive device, the summary says. The dial of the clock was set to the number 20. Though she initially thought the device was a prank, the witness decided to notify RNC security, the summary shows. The witness later identified herself to the media as Carlin Younger. In an interview with Business Insider, Younger recounted her experience finding the bomb, which matches closely with her FBI interview. Her public statements also appear to confirm the fact that federal authorities never spoke with her that day and did not at all until she reached out to them through the tip line. The delay was not the only apparent misstep in the FBI's pipe bomb probe under Wray's watch. A whistleblower previously told Congress that the Bureau waited more than a year to request field offices to canvass informants for information on the device. The whistleblower, described as a senior FBI special agent, told lawmakers that the request was unusual because it was transmitted more than a year after the FBI had begun the investigation, and it raises questions about the progress and extent of the FBI's investigation. So there are obviously a number of components here that raise some serious questions. One, it is this witness who swears up and down, listen, I know that bomb was not there. I know it wasn't there at 12 o'clock on that day, and it got there at 12:40, versus the FBI claiming it was, and releasing video that, and how that can be, whether that can be trusted or not, that shows it was there 16 hours prior. Now, what of the timer? This is another interesting component. It is a 60-minute timer, and it was on 20. Now, was the timer... Now, this is described as a kitchen timer. This tells me it's not digital. This, in my mind, you're talking about the circular where you turn it to the right all the way, and then it slowly click, 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 makes itself around until it hits the top at 60 minutes. What I would be real curious to know, what would be the expected response time from receiving a call telling law enforcement in D.C. there is a bomb at this specific location, and the time in which they would get there to get that device? Is it under 20 minutes? Why would it be set? And here's the thing. Let's say you stumble upon something like that. You're just an average person. And you see that it is on 20 minutes. Do you stick around to see if that thing is still in actual motion counting down? Or do you immediately think, oh my gosh, 20 minutes, call 911, get away from it, far enough away from it that you're not really able to see whether that timer is functional or not? Where my mind is going here is the possibility that These were set up in order to make it look as if these were bombs about ready to go off. If the response time is under 20 minutes, you set it for 20 minutes. That way, when somebody finds it, they call and they say it's 20 minutes. You get there in a response time less than that. The bomb grabs it, takes it away, and does whatever with it. Just all of this, if you are to explore the notion that this was all theater for the purposes of diverting security from the Capitol over to that location. If, in fact, these were, and let's say she was mistaken, and the FBI's assertion that they were put there 16 hours beforehand was correct, if you could put that timer, have it set on 20, but not actually functional. But I don't, thinking of that, that wouldn't make too much sense, because why would they risk someone finding it so far in advance if the whole point was getting a 911 call, getting some sort of phone call during the period of time on January 6th that you have the Senate doing their thing over there when it comes to the presidential election. And if the whole point is to draw a diversion during that period of time, that her timing, her layout of that bomb not being there at noon, but by 12:40, that would be more in line with with that approach, that belief. So you've got, okay, this gal, do we believe her or do we believe the FBI? The same FBI, of course, tried to overthrow the Trump administration. The one thing that one can't reasonably assert is that there's nothing to see here. No one can say, oh, you're just looking too much into this, because so much of this does not make sense. And much of it is fed, again, by the complete apparent lack of any interest by the FBI or the Department of Justice to track these people down or this person down. You can get lost in the weeds looking at timelines, and this person said this, and well, why would the timer be on 20 but not, and why does the FBI say viable and not, and there can be value in sorting through all of that. But when you just pull back from all of that, and you think to what extent, I mean, we've had some local people right here in this studio that talked about being surrounded because they were in the Capitol on January 6th, at the Yard Waste Recycling Center, and swatting in on them like they were the America's most wanted, most dangerous criminal in the existence of mankind. We've seen people's houses. This is what some of the whistleblowers at the FBI had talked about and complained about, that you had people charged with a misdemeanor and full-blown SWAT teams sent breaking into their homes in the middle of the night. But whomever's responsible for planting actual bombs, the indifference to that, I don't care who you are. That's a huge flag. If there were a listing of, quote, mysteries, and I magically got to pick a few of them, like I want to know this one, this would be one of them. This and TWA Flight 800. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Ozarks elder law. I don't know how it was. I did not realize this, but I was told yesterday that Ozarks Elder Law will be at Farm Fest, and maybe we'll have Lori Rook join us on Friday or Saturday as we broadcast live from there. Excuse me, I turned off the microphone to sneeze. But it'd be a great opportunity to chat with whether it's her or I'm sure she won't be out there the entire time, but she's got incredible crew, Ladies in White as they're known, out there at Farm Fest, Ozarks Elder Law. If you have any questions for them, consultations, of course, are a courtesy. So if you are looking at perhaps getting a family member in some sort of assisted living facility or nursing home or memory care, or you are just wanting to make sure that when you pass on, your land is taken care of. Their big theme out there is keeping the farm, which makes sense. This is an area that far too often they have seen people that because they didn't plan ahead, they have had the farm taken away from family as they pass on. Whether it is to even prior to passing on, paying for nursing homes, or post passing on, things weren't locked up solidly in the best way that protects you and the family most effectively, and so it ends up getting parceled off. Whatever the reason, this is a really big focus of Ozarks Elder Law, and so when they are at Farm Fest, this is a bit of their theme, though they'll, of course, answer any questions in any areas of concern. Ozarks Elder Law, 10 area locations, free consultation. You can find them at ozarkselderlaw.com. Tried and true, Tim Walz floating an assault rifle ban via state constitutional amendment. Having failed to get traction for his gun ban in the legislature, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is now suggesting a ban on the sale and possession of assault rifles in the state via constitutional amendment. I still have yet been provided or observed a definition of an assault rifle by people who talk about legislating assault rifles. What is that? Minnesota Governor Tim Walz proposed a new option Saturday for addressing gun violence. Now, if it's just assault rifles, is that separate from guns? Is this a different category? I think it's interesting this is from the Minnesota Post, in which it talks about the new option for addressing gun violence. Well, is gun violence different than assault rifle violence? Because they say, at least up until this point, they still claim, oh, no, we don't support banning guns. It's weapons of war. Or assault rifles. A bullet's a bullet. And a bullet that hits you in the chest or hits you in the head generally doesn't matter what sort of firearm is utilized. It's going to have the same impact on you. A constitutional amendment to ban the sale and possession of, quote, assault rifles in the state would require a majority of the legislature to vote yes to putting a ban on the ballot, and then a majority of voters approving the amendment. Breitbart News noted that Walz pushed for an assault weapons ban after the August 27, 25 Annunciation Catholic school shooting, then said it was not acceptable that Republican members of the legislature were refusing to vote on gun bans. He tried doubling down on GOP lawmakers, pressing them to at least hold a floor vote on the gun prohibition legislation. But his gun control push did not get traction, and now he's floating the idea of a constitutional amendment to accomplish the same thing that the legislature would not do. Now, these are the same Democrats that always run around and like, well, we support fire. No, I'm a big hunter. You think someone can't be killed by whatever firearm Tim Walz, the expert hunter, utilizes? Someone may want to clue him in on the fact that that firearm can also be used to kill someone. This fantasy world of disinformation in which they want people to believe that, well, whatever firearm you have for hunting or home protect, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about these over here. Well, the ones that you're, quote, not talking about can do the same thing as the ones that you are, and that is kill someone. So yet again, here we have somebody talking about banning an object of which they don't even provide a definition. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Farm Fest 2025 be broadcasting there Friday morning, sponsored by Brad Pistole, host of Safe Money Radio. Also there Saturday, going to check in with friends Flying Feathers, St. Clair of the Ozarks, Home Improvement, Sandcrest Trailer Sales. Sandcrest Trailer Sales, once again, raffling off an incredible trailer with the proceeds going to the Warrior's Journey. Fantastic organization. And you can either purchase tickets there at Farm Fest or you can go online. Where do people go do that? Is it our site, ksgf.com?
Yes.
Right? Okay, so you can go to ksgf.com and get registered that way as well. So a chance to win an incredible trailer from one of the best companies in the area, Sandcrest Trailer Sales, and then at the same time help out Warrior's Journey. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041, and I want to welcome you to hour number 2 on this fine Tuesday. My name is Nick Reed. Yesterday, a joint press conference, and this was Trump and Netanyahu, and this was the release of the Gaza peace plan, which I recognize as being all right, calling the bluff. There's been this real stalemate of sorts, if you will, and increasingly you have a number of different countries, Canada being one of them, wanting to encourage, well, maybe they don't want to, but taking the step of what encourages terrorism by offering the terrorists their own country. And these so-called allies of peace will, of course, say, no, this doesn't have anything to do with rewarding terrorism. So part of the 20-point plan is, okay, then let's take the terrorist out of it here. Let's go ahead and we'll demilitarize that part, get Israel out of there. But guess what? The terrorists are as well. We're going to have a new government that isn't Palestinian Authority terrorist, that's not Hamas terrorist. And there are a couple other points in here as well that I'll share. I believe what is occurring here, on one hand, if this did work, okay, great. But I believe Trump knows what he's dealing with here, and this is more about saying, listen, we gave him a chance. Again. They've been given numerous chances. It is always the Palestinians who turn these chances down. All of you people out there that keep running around, oh, we need a ceasefire. Here it is. Here it is. Who's going to say no? I think Trump knows who's going to say no. And this is sort of a reset, a reminder who the problem is here. And so this is putting the ball in their court. There's a bit of video audio that floats around periodically, gets shared, perhaps you've seen it, of Bill Clinton talking about the only time Yasser Arafat ever lied to him was regarding a peace deal situation. The people who have this authority over the people of Gaza always say, here's what we want. Then when it's presented to them, they're the ones who say, never mind. This is one of the many layers of the frustration cake that thinking people have when it comes to this, and when the observance of these other countries that continue to side with the people who are the ones who stop the peace from occurring at every single turn. If you really want peace and, frankly, a better quality of life for the people in that region of the world, you're on the wrong side. These people who run around portraying that part of the world as this hellhole, but then they want to blame Israel for it, when it's Hamas that is in charge of those people. We're talking about the Palestinian Authority. They are the ones in charge. They're the ones. Do you think it's the Israeli government that sneaks across the border and throws homosexuals off the top of buildings as punishment for being homosexuals? Is that what you think's happening? Do you think it's the Israelis who sneak across the border and have public executions for anyone in the Hamas military who are just suspected of being homosexual? When it comes to work permits, that door swings one way. Thousands of people that are part of Gaza world apply for and get work permits to go into Israel. Doesn't happen the other way around. What does that tell us? So Trump unveiled the 20-point plan during a joint address with Netanyahu after the pair met to discuss the Gaza war and to work towards easing tensions with Qatar following an Israeli airstrike on Hamas targets in the country. The president predicted Hamas would respond positively to the plan. Now, I don't know that I believe that he really believes that as much as he's trying to make it look like a no-brainer. Well, of course they're going to. This is everything they want, right? Yeah, of course they're going to. Knowing, in all likelihood, that they will not. It's a setting of expectations to demonstrate that Hamas is the problem. Now, part of this is to, if it's not about terrorism, well, guess what? Hamas is not allowed to be part of the government. Now, is the left really going to disagree with that? Are they going to insist? This is part of the brilliance of this, is they run around saying, oh, no, we're not for Hamas. We're for the people. Okay, well, that's what Trump's plan fulfills here. All right, we're going to get things back going here. The people get to run things, but not Hamas. I guess we're going to find out if all these lefties really mean that they're not supporters of Hamas. They're just supporters of the people of Gaza. Because if that's true, this part of the plan is brilliant. Everyone can come together. The people of Gaza get to be in charge, as opposed to Hamas, the terrorist organization. I think we know which way the left's going to go on this. Because as much as the left wants to run around claiming it's not about being anti-Semitic, it's not about supporting Hamas, we know the reality of it. And there's some other parts of this I'll share coming up. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 61. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 87. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 87.
20-point plan announced by President Trump during a joint address with Netanyahu. The president predicted Hamas will respond positively to the plan. I don't believe he actually expects that. I think this is an expectation set to make it seem like a no-brainer, to further demonstrate how Hamas has absolutely no interest whatsoever in coexisting and in anything other than the elimination of Jews. The plan is one that Trump has said if the terror organization, Hamas, opposes it, quote, Israel will have my full backing to finish the job of destroying the threats of Hamas. Telling Netanyahu, quote, Bibi, you have our full backing to do what you would have to do, end quote. Netanyahu praised Trump's plan as a significant step towards ending the war in Gaza, bringing peace throughout the Middle East. He also laid out the timeline for Israel to implement the plan if Hamas agrees to go along with it. Netanyahu stated, quote, Hamas will be disarmed, Gaza will be demilitarized, Israel will retain security responsibilities, including a security perimeter for the foreseeable future, and lastly, Gaza will have a peaceful civilian administration that is run neither by Hamas nor by the Palestinian Authority. And this should satisfy the needs of those on the left who claim this is not about rewarding terrorists by taking them out of it. If adopted, the Trump administration's framework requires that Hamas immediately release all hostages, living and dead. In return, Israel would begin to withdraw from Gaza in phases and would release almost 2,000 Gazan prisoners. In addition, humanitarian aid will immediately flow into Gaza without interference. Hamas fighters who commit to peaceful coexistence with Israel will be allowed to remain in Gaza, while any Hamas fighters that refuse will be allowed to leave the area. The proposal would establish a board of peace with Trump as chairman and other heads of state participating. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, at this point, is the only other member to be announced. The board would be tasked with overseeing a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public services in municipalities for the people in Gaza. The Palestinian Authority would be allowed to take over governing Gaza once it's undergone a series of reforms designed to weed out support for terrorism. Again, for those on the left who say this isn't about supporting terrorism, that should be satisfying. Trump's plan would make Gaza a special economic zone and incentivize investments in the area in order to rebuild the war-torn region. No Gazan civilians will be forced to leave the territory, and Hamas will have no role in governing the territory. In order to keep the peace in Gaza, the U.S. and its Arab partners would deploy a temporary international stabilization force to provide security. The force would work with Palestinian police partners and secure Gaza borders to ensure the flow of humanitarian aid and prevent munitions from entering the area. Israel would withdraw its military from Gaza and hand over its territory to the International Stabilization Force based on an agreement both sides come to. Under the terms of Trump's deal, Israeli forces would not occupy or annex Gaza. Now, this is ultimately what, again, I believe is part of positioning things. It's clear that a number of other countries have just grown tired of this. And when you grow tired of something, oftentimes what you do is you require the person or the entity that is most reasonable to just give in because you want it over with. And you know the terrorists aren't going to stop. So eventually, because you're just bored and tired of dealing with the hassles, you're like, just give them what they want. The problem for Israel, of course, is that Hamas wants the elimination of Israel. With this particular plan, ideally, if Hamas and the Palestinians, if they're like, you know what, we're really bored with this as well. This seems like a pretty good plan. This is the great coexisting plan. We get what we want. Israel gets what they want. We stop trying to wipe them off the map. So on paper, yeah, it looks great, makes sense. And a 1 in a million shot that somehow, even, this isn't realistic, but if there were forces within Gaza that were like, you know what, we're tired of this as well. So we're going to essentially wedge Hamas out of this thing and the Palestinian Authority out of this thing, and perhaps civilian forces within Gaza, or maybe some of those less radical that have been allied with the Palestinian Authority, with Hamas, are ready to say, you know what, this is exhausting. I'm tired of my kids and my grandkids having to grow up in this sort of environment, so I think this is a good plan. I don't think it's going to happen. I think even if they wanted that to happen, guess who would step in to prevent it from happening? Hamas. But just fantasy world, unicorns and lollipops, if that worked, great. I believe that this would, if this were in a file folder in Trump's in the Oval Office, the file folder would be labeled "Put up or shut up" to Hamas. And this is more about a message to the world that is trying to get the Israelis to cave in and give Hamas what they want, and saying, okay, all right, fine. Here are some of the things that Hamas claims they want. It's not about them, it's about the people. And so this satisfies that, knowing full well that they'll say no, that it isn't going to happen. Now, there's always the likelihood that they may try to play along and do, as oftentimes terrorists do, they give just a little tiny bit in order to drag things out for the purposes of continuing to have some sort of stranglehold over the people that they're terrorizing. But in all likelihood, this is going to go the way that every other peace agreement has gone, including the one that Netanyahu agreed to during Trump's first term. And that was Hamas. The Palestinian Authority says, nah, we changed our mind. We don't really want to do this after all. But that will then allow, the United States as an ally of Israel, and Israel to say, look, we tried it again. We did it again. They are the ones who said no. So we're going to move forward with what we were doing. This was their choice, not ours. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com, all of your home loan needs, the characters in that team, good crew of people, Anthony, Alex. You may be waiting to pull the trigger. You have a certain interest rate in mind. I recommend if that's what's holding you back when it comes to even the refinancing, but perhaps more importantly or significantly, the home loan itself. Reach out to them, discuss with them. Here's what we're thinking, and they may have some information that you don't. And that information might change your decision. Maybe it won't. But you know what? You'll probably be even more secure in your decision after talking with them and incorporating in other additional information into your decision. All that being said, if you are in your head, you're like, no, I just 5%. I mean, we're not going to do it until 5%. We had a message come to us in a dream, and it said 5% is the right time I'm going to do it. That's great. In terms of interest rates, you can get all of the paperwork and stuff taken care of, all of the legwork done now. That way, once that moment comes, bam, they can pull the trigger for you automatically. So you are in it to win it from the beginning. All of your home loan needs, refinancing, reverse mortgages. I want a great homeloan.com because you do.
Fields Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 61. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 87. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 87.
Well, the NFL announcing the Super Bowl halftime show, and it is Bad Bunny. This is going to be the 2026 halftime show. Now, if you're not, this is one of those guys, I think maybe a lot of people have heard, well, obviously a lot of people are huge fans, but some of you, depending on your demographic, have no clue who this guy is, never heard of him. Some of you are like, yeah, I know the name, I hear it because he's very popular, but I couldn't tell you what he sounds like or any of his songs. Are you a Bad Bunny fan?
I'm kind of like probably some of our listeners. I think I've heard of him, but I don't know what he sings off the top of my head.
Well, okay, so in terms of culture today, he's one of the extreme left-wingers out there,
Oh, goody.
ISIS, Nazis, and at one point because he's from Puerto Rico, And he wears dresses when he performs, not always, but sometimes, which, you know, back in the day, I don't know, it's just different. If you had some of these rockers, particularly in the 70s, like the David Bowies, or more of the pop into the 80s, the Boy Georges, it was just part of the performance. But the left has turned it into something weird today where they demand you actually pretend they're a real woman. So wearing a dress today as a performer, oftentimes, it's just seen as more of a, okay, we get it already. you let's try and move on here. He earlier this month, and he's a rapper, singer-rapper, confirmed that his recent decision to abstain from is banning America. Well, apparently until this gig came along. This is one of those lefties that really stands by his principles until, oh, wait a minute, I get to do the halftime. Well, maybe I'll make an exception. Very dedicated to the cause. Got our own Greta Thunberg here. But his recent decision, because of ICE enforcement, and he doesn't agree with America enforcing our immigration laws and holding people accountable to the law. He said, there are many reasons why I don't show up in the U.S., and none of them were out of hate. I performed there many times. All of the shows have been successful. All of them have been magnificent. I've enjoyed connecting with Latinos who live in the United States, but specifically for a residency here in Puerto Rico, when we are an unincorporated territory in the U.S., people from the U.S. could come here to see the show. Latinos and Puerto Ricans of the United States could also come here or to any part of the world, but there was this issue of like blanking ICE could be outside my concert, and it's something that we were talking about and very concerned about. He's shown disdain for ICE, who of course are facing increased violent attacks and assassination attempts. According to the Independent reports, he captioned the clip ICE and could be heard saying in Spanish, look, those mother effers are in these cars, RAV4s, sons of B-word, instead of leaving the people alone and working there. In addition to bashing Trump and endorsing Kamala Harris, he's been a major proponent of, left-wing ideology, hyper-focusing on LGBT stuff. His videos including a lot of same-sex, just this standard sort of thing. Sexuality's fluid, all of this stuff on the left. Now, halftime shows are something to me that aren't nearly as relevant as they were once upon a time, but I don't know. That may just be me because of the demographic that I have snuck into. The halftime shows seem to have gone the way of Super Bowl commercials, where once upon a time it was this really awesome event, and then it's like, they're still okay. Yeah, it's somewhat entertaining, but it's just not that huge, wow, that was the most amazing thing ever. If you're a fan of some of these artists, then you're probably going to really enjoy them and think it was amazing. But I just don't know what these people are thinking. What is wrong with just picking someone that isn't annoying, that isn't controversial, that doesn't dog on the... How about somebody who hasn't taken the stance that they just refuse to perform in America? Is that too much? Maybe somebody who doesn't trash on people who have signed up. And the disproportionately high number of Latinos that are part of ICE and border security? It is massively high. This is part of the irony of people like Bad Bunny and these others that in the name of Latinos, they trash all over ICE. Have you seen the makeup of immigration services in this country? It's massively filled with Latinos. Some Latinos. And It's not even a political thing. Like I said, I don't care so much. But of all the people you're picking, it's almost as if there's some people that feel as if they aren't really ticking off or offending or just annoying middle America, then they haven't done their job. It's as if they have this perspective that if everyone's happy and like, you know what, that's a really good choice. I'm not necessarily a fan of that person, but hey, they seem pretty cool and love America and stuff, that you're somehow giving Trump supporters something that they like. And you can't do that. Because Trump supporters are evil. Trump supporters are bad. So in order to not be evil and not be bad, you have to choose someone that you feel Trump supporters will have problems with. Now, I think that it's beyond Trump supporters. I believe that you have a lot of sort of independent voters that maybe they like Trump on some things, they don't like him on other things, but they're just kind of tired of these people that constantly crap all over our country, but then come here and use it for its resources to line their pockets. And clearly, that's what's happening here. And when it comes down to it, here is yet another rich lefty that takes some sort of bold, moralistic stance, some sort of holier than thou virtue signaling until a really huge opportunity presents itself that can only be fulfilled by coming and performing in the United States. And suddenly those convictions aren't quite as strong as they were before. Suddenly those issues that were so important that even if it meant sacrificing the benefit of performing in the United States, by gosh, I'm not going to do it. Suddenly, oh, the Super Bowl? Maybe I will do that after all. Again, Super Bowl, and do what they want. I don't think it's going to stop people from watching the Super Bowl. I think a lot of people would tune out. A lot of people are going to tune out just because rap isn't necessarily their type of music anyhow. But why this insistence on picking individuals that you know is going to be a turnoff to a segment of the population, particularly given the anti-law enforcement, anti-ICE a narrative that they involve themselves in a time when people are out there trying to assassinate ICE agents. Hey, these are the people that get paid a lot more money than I do. Apparently, they're much smarter than I am. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Now, this is from Sunday, but I still thought it was the sort of response I think that normal people need to default into when you get these questions presented by the media to set a narrative. Polyev of Canada is fantastic at this. He'll be asked a question by the media. What do you say to people who say that Trump, who's saying it? Well, you know people. No, who? Give me a quote. The media becomes very clever at asking a question that sets this premise in which simply by trying to answer the question, you are appearing to agree with the premise of the question. And Dana White was on 60 Minutes. He's the UFC president. And he's at toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity. One of the driving forces behind men and young men fleeing the Democrat Party. This term that insists just being who you are is bad. You being who you naturally are, the masculinity portion of being a guy, of being that is toxic. Is it just that by itself? Can you think the Democrats and the media are like, well, we got a real problem keeping men here, and Tim Walz didn't seem to work. Can't figure that one out. I don't know if Pete Buttigieg will, perhaps, but we just can't seem to figure out why it is that men aren't drawn to us. Well, maybe because you label them all toxic. You throw in the Me Too movement that declared you can get accused of rape without any evidence whatsoever, and we're supposed to presume you're guilty. Those two things alone, not a real welcoming invitation to the Democrat Party. But the reason I wanted to play this audio is because of the way that Dana White responded to it regarding, are men just becoming too toxic?
You once used a term with me that I quoted you on, the wussification of America.
I think I said, but yeah, I get it. We're on 60 Minutes, yeah.
Has the pendulum swung the other way?
I feel like it's starting to.
Cage fighting has always celebrated male bravado. But White is intent that more women than ever follow the sport. He bristles at the suggestion that UFC fandom is taking on new edge. You don't think there's this cultural movement? It's a lot of guys, call it the manosphere, you're one of the leaders.
You talk about knowing your fan base and knowing who they are.
Who are they?
18 to 34-year-old males and growing, global. We are definitely unapologetically masculine.
Can this bubble over to too much? When you hear toxic masculinity.
What's that mean?
You tell me.
No, you just said it. What's the definition of toxic? How can somebody be too masculine? Is that a possibility? Can you be too masculine?
You tell me.
No.
You think so?
The answer is hell no.
This is just the best way to handle these sorts of questions, and I wish more independent and conservative individuals would answer the questions this way, and that is by, well, what do you define this for me? For too long, the left have gotten away with this anti-male bigotry of toxic masculinity. You don't question what it is. Everybody just agrees that, being a guy, it's toxic, it's bad. Bad things happen because of it. It's like assault weapons. What's an assault weapon? Well, no, you're the one who's using the term. Toxic masculinity. I mean, you think it's getting, what do you mean toxic masculinity? What is it? The 60 Minutes reporter here, clearly not accustomed to having to define such things. Well, I don't know. You tell me. No, what do you mean I tell you? You're the one who used the word. In order to be accommodating And to get to the point of utilizing facts in order to answer the question, we oftentimes fail to correct things out of the gate, and that is forcing them to define what it is that they're talking about. And the reason it's important is because when it comes to toxic masculinity, for example, we know what they mean. But see, they don't want to say it. See, we're supposed to all just know what they mean. You know, guys are bad. You know, just being a guy. They can't say that because they're saying, well, because I'm a bigot. And this is what I think of guys and all guys. And so they can't say that. Then in turn, asking them to define what they mean puts them in a sticky situation because they realize immediately, well, I can't really say what it means. It is a way to really expose whether it's the irrationality, the racism, the bigotry, the misogyny, whichever category the discussion point is on, but it allows for, in that arena, the person on the left to expose themselves. And it doesn't have to be something as, confrontational as the issue of toxic masculinity, but even when people talk about, well, the rich need to pay, what do you mean by rich? What is that? How much is that? Is that a number? And does that number apply in San Francisco the same way it applies in Willard, Missouri? Because buying power is a lot different. I mean, what you can get for $1 million in San Francisco in terms of a home is vastly different than what you can get for $1 million in Willard. So when you're talking about we need to tax the rich more, what do you mean by the rich? What is that? Or even when there is a claim, well, he's a racist, or what has he said? What exactly did he or she say that is racist? We, for too long, have allowed the irrational to get away with throwing these terms out there. And all of us just sort of accepting it. And Dana White's casual response there, well, no, what do you mean by that? Is the perfect way to combat that form of irrationality. Not to mention, I find it hilarious as someone who sees the promos for, I don't even know how many Real Housewives there are out there. Do you watch the Real Housewives?
No.
I mean, there's like tons of them.
Mm-mm.
There's of L.A., there was Atlanta, D.C., I think, or maybe it's called Real Housewives of the Potomac or something like that. There's a bunch of them out there. And you want to, you watch one of those shows for 5 minutes and we don't talk about toxic femininity in this country? Like, you want to look at if we're really going to play that game and see how it is that people treat their colleagues, particularly in heated situations, and we want to do a compare and contrast as to what really does feel toxic, I don't know that's a game that people on the left necessarily want to play. I mean, I'm not saying that guys just always get along and always work through their problems and everything. But you get, this is all part of the narrative out there that, well, if men would just talk about their feelings like women do, we would all be better off. Have you ever seen a Real Housewives show? That is not how that works at all. Any of the reality TV shows. And I would argue on those same shows that have men, the men that are the most, quote, toxic are also the least the least masculine on the show as well. Yeah, if you ever watch one of those that have a mixture of guys and gals, the guy that is the most masculine member of the reality TV show is generally the one that's like, I'm not getting involved in this, just kind of standing back in the background. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Rosie O'Donnell did an interview with Nicole Wallace. She's got a podcast. And in it, she acknowledged that even her therapist thinks that she's nuts, which that says a lot. It's all Donald Trump. It really is. This is a mental health issue. And by that I mean this is a woman who left the country. Why? Or at least the reason she gave, if you take her at her word. Because of Donald Trump. And she just could not manage to live in a country with Donald Trump as president. The problem is that's all she spends her time thinking about. The move has become irrelevant. You move to get away from him. Yet every day there's some news item about her doing interviews obsessing over Donald Trump. You did this wrong. If you moved away for your mental health, you failed miserably. Part of what she said, and this is the level of hysteria, and frankly, part of the reason some people feel righteous in trying to assassinate people like Donald Trump. She said, when people say I changed my mind, I'm like, welcome back to reality. She declared, imploring Americans to rally against Trump. Quote, let's all be Americans together, right? Because what's happening is not only happening to Democrats, it's happening to everyone. And when the Medicaid cuts go in, old people are going to start to die. To die, she repeated for emphasis. What's he done yet? Hasn't even hit us yet. So again, people are going to die. In fact, this is Chuck Schumer, I'll have audio in the next hour, leaving the White House yesterday. People are going to die because of Donald Trump, which is motivation for people to kill him. Going to save lives by killing that monster. Chuck Schumer knows what he's doing. And Rosie O'Donnell knows what she's doing. And Nicole Wallace, having her on the podcast, knows what she's doing. But the part that earned the headline here was O'Donnell. Well, she said, if he's not stopped now, we've lost our country. More of the murder him rhetoric. The most revealing moment came when O'Donnell admitted her own therapist questioned her intensity or the intensity of her feelings about Trump. Quote, my therapist said, why are you so upset? And I said to her, why are you not? I mean, in all honesty, her therapist should be like, you know what? I can't take your money anymore. Because clearly your level of issues are well beyond my scope. Glenn Beck is in an hour. Got news in 60 seconds. YouTube has agreed to pay President Trump $24.5 million in a settlement in his lawsuit against the tech giant for banning his account in January of 2021. Now, all you lefties should be celebrating this, right? That whole freedom of speech thing. This is what you categorize as freedom of speech? This is what, it was just, 2 weeks ago, Jimmy Kimmel? Jimmy Kimmel was temporarily pulled off of air because of some of the things he said. YouTube here fully banning Donald Trump because some of the things that he said. And now they've settled a lawsuit. This should be a great point of celebration for the left, who has this new sudden found love of freedom of speech. Now, of course, I'm being somewhat facetious because, as we know, the left will not only celebrate this somehow will be dictatorial. This will somehow be a bad thing because this is free speech that doesn't benefit them in the context of what they talk about free speech. And incidentally, what we know from these outfits, Google, YouTube, Facebook, the reason that they were banning people like Donald Trump and other citizens was because of pressure from deep state government folks. So it actually was a First Amendment issue because it involved government pressuring people. And the fact that under the Biden regime, you had the banning of Donald Trump from YouTube. I'll have to go back. I just really don't remember the left pitching a big fit about that in the name of free speech. I suspect there's a good chance there was some sort of monologue from Jimmy Kimmel regarding the issue. But if there was, I'm going to go out on a limb here and note it was probably celebrating the banning of Donald Trump. Trump previously filed the lawsuit against YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook after the giants banned his account following January 6th. Trump said back in July of 2021, we're demanding an end to the shadow banning, a stop to the silencing, and a stop to the blacklisting, banishing, and canceling that you know so well. I'm confident we will achieve a historic victory for American freedom and, at the same time, freedom of speech. Trump's lawyers asked the court to prevent the tech giants from exercising censorship and editorial control over the post of a U.S. president, according to the Wall Street Journal. The YouTube agreement to pay $24.5 million settlement after Meta agreed to pay Trump $25 million and Twitter X paid $10 million, the Wall Street Journal reports. Of course, President Trump also received a settlement from CBS over its decision to deceptively edit an interview of Kamala Harris to help her during the presidential campaign. Trump filed a $20 billion lawsuit against the network's parent company for deceptively editing that 60-minute interview. Trump will be paid $16 million up front, according to Fox News, in that particular settlement. So a big win for free speech. So all you Looney Tunes out there that like to protest out in front of the VA, I always see them on Friday. Do you see them when we're coming back from Scramblers?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah. A lot of them have chairs because they're too old just to stand for an extended period of time. Yeah, if you've not driven by, they stand in front of the VA. They may do it every day. I don't know. These people are of an age where they're retired. And it's the standard no king sign. These are people who, if you actually ask them direct questions about any of the issues they take a stance on, they're not going to know anything because they're ignorant. But I'm sure they'll be out there celebrating this decision by the courts in the name of free speech. Here's another one. ESPN star Paul Feinbaum said that he was finalizing a potential interview with Donald Trump in 2019 before the network ultimately axed it before he got to sit down with the president. Feinbaum spoke to Outkick founder Clay Travis, opened up on several topics, including his attempt to get the interview. Trump was set to appear at the LSU and Alabama game that fall, and Feinbaum said he wanted to go above and beyond. Quote, our producer said, we got to do something big. College Game Day was going to be there. Obviously, our show isn't College Game Day, so I reached out to a friend of mine in D.C., and he said, you want to get Trump? I said, yeah. I was doing Get Up and First Take in New York 2 days a week. I said, I'm going to be in New York on Wednesday, and he said, I think we could do it at the White House Thursday morning. Can you get there? And I said, yeah, I can get there. I'm in New York. He said, let me run it down the flagpole. He texted me back, said, looking good. I called my boss. They killed it. This is ESPN. Feinbaum told Travis he was devastated that the interview was nixed. At the last second, he said he was told they weren't allowed to mix politics with sports. The longtime college football analyst suggested he was caught off guard given the college basketball analyst Andy Katz picked the NCAA basketball tournament with President Barack Obama. Quote, I think the answer is pretty evident. Andy Katz went to the White House every year for the bracket. It was a turning point. Feinbaum went on to say it wasn't about politics at all. It was just about the idea of going to the White House to interview the President of the United States. It wasn't about politics. It was about a football game, the biggest game of the year in college football. I never exactly knew where the kill button came from, but the interview didn't happen. ESPN declined to comment. Now, all of you Jimmy Kimmel fans that were canceling your Disney Plus subscriptions and boycotting ABC News because they were temporarily preempting Jimmy Kimmel's show, I'm sure you will start your ban, protest, boycott ESPN efforts any moment in order to push back on the fact that here one of their own journalists had an interview with the President of the United States squashed. I mean, we all know it's not really going to happen. But this is yet more evidence, more proof that this freedom of speech stuff that the left goes on and on about, they are so absolutely full of crap. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 61. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 87. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 87.
midnight tonight? Is this when the big old shutdown's going to be happening?
Mm-hmm.
Shutdown no one cares about except for D.C. Well, and any of the people that might temporarily have their paychecks put on hold. But ultimately, when it comes to the country overall, I saw this bullet little thing across the screen last week, and it noted that under Trump, the how many fewer federal employees there are today. And I forgot what the number was, but I was like, oh, which I kind of knew, right? That we're going to make government smaller, but that never actually really happens. And it was a significant number, and I thought I didn't notice.
Yeah.
All this, talk about how horrible things were going to be, and you can't cut this job, you can't cut that job. Every single one of these jobs absolutely essential to making sure that America continues to function.
That's right. It'll be chaos.
It'll be total chaos. People are going to die. People will die. In case you didn't know that. They're going to die because of these jobs going away. And I saw it, whatever the number was, I don't even remember now. It was high. And I was like, oh, I wonder where the stories are of the people dying because of those jobs going away. It's the same thing with this budget talk. The budget that they're talking about just, extending temporarily, that the Democrats are trying to prevent because they claim that people are going to die. It is the Biden budget. It is just continuing what Joe Biden had in place, which was already too much. This is how dumb this stuff is and how frustrating it is and how it is. It's very difficult for me not to just want to pull over whenever I drive by those No Kings old people in front of the VA that talk about, keep your hands off my men, people are going to die. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. No clue. What the Republicans have put together here that the Democrats are threatening to shut the government down over is Joe Biden's spending. It's the same thing. Just dealing with people who have no idea what they're talking about, but act as if they are some sort of authority. I just can't even imagine acting so righteous over something that I know so little about. J.D. Vance, there was a visit at the White House. Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, the election denier, J.D. Vance. You had Mike Johnson. And these are comments from J.D. Vance upon leaving the White House after these discussions.
The original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care, while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd, and now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. We think it's totally unacceptable, and we think the American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the right thing. Now, I want to make one final point here. You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats about the fact that American healthcare policy is broken. Well, we know that American healthcare policy is broken. We've been trying to fix it for the 8 months that we've been in office, but every single thing that they accuse about being broken about American healthcare is policy the Democrats have supported for the past decade. So if they want to talk about how to fix American healthcare policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together. But let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do. And the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see.
Shut her down. Do it. I mean, this is one instance. In fact, do I have it? I meant to save it. I must not have saved. Let's see here. Yeah, shoot. Britt Hume on Fox News noting that every time there's one of these shutdowns that occurs, Republicans somehow manage to be perceived as the ones responsible for the shutdown. He noted, I don't think that's going to be the case this time. And Trump is the element here that changes all of that. And I'll say this also, of all the things for Democrats to threaten to shut this down over, which again doesn't even actually matter to most people, but it's forcing Americans to pay for health care for illegals. Talk about not getting the message from the last election. It's as if Democrats have said, oh, you didn't like the fact that we imported as many illegals as possible in this country and have set up sanctuary cities and we're giving free legal representation to and putting up in fancy hotels and giving gift cards and cell phone. Oh, all of that you didn't like. Guess what? Now we want you to pay for their health care. If I were Republicans, I would make sure that my mouth did not open on this issue without noting this is what they're wanting to do. They're wanting to put the healthcare system in danger for Americans by funneling money to people who are in this country illegally. Every American should know it. And all of these nutjob leftists that like to stand on the side of the road in Springfield and everywhere else holding up signs, keep your hands off my medicine, keep your hands off my medic, are fully supporting the political party that is wanting to drain those resources in order to pay for health care for illegal immigrants. Yet their little lapdogs that have no clue that they're being used as pawns will go out there, post on social media, stand on the side of the road, pretending as if Republicans are the ones that are to blame for this atrocious medical system we've crafted for ourselves. And J.D. Vance noted that the same people who are talking about it being broken are the individuals that keep perpetuating this, but more than that, many of them are responsible for it because they pushed Obamacare. How much more of a clue do you need than to see the same people who, during the Obama years, told you Obamacare is going to shore up our system? Got to have Obamacare so you'll have more doctor choices. You'll have more insurance choices. Your premiums are going to plummet. It's going to save rural hospitals. Without Obamacare, those rural hospitals may close. And if you are somebody who lives out away from a city and you have a heart attack, it may be the difference between you living and dying. We got to have Obamacare in order to save those rural hospitals. And emergency room times are going to be absolute slashed. Everything they said, the opposite has happened. And those same people who sold us that complete scam are up there lecturing us now about the fact that we need to support them so that they can fix the system that they helped destroy, or at least lead us down the pathway to destruction. Listen, I'm not claiming it was perfect before that. Our healthcare system was at its peak when government was not involved. That's when, and if we really want to get down to it and act like intelligent human beings, we would look at when was it at its peak, and that was it, and we would go back to that. But, of course, it's not going to happen. Democrats play off of people's fears in order to get elected, telling them if you don't elect us and have us start dictating more of your medical choices for you and promising to pay it for you, then you're going to die. And this is what they say. And Republicans are too afraid of being accused of killing off people, so they come up with their versions of how it is government should be running health care, to the point of the same old standard from the same people responsible for the system that's in place today. You notice one of the ways that Democrats will hit on Republicans is the fact that Republicans promised that they were going to, fix, replace, reform Obamacare, and they never did. They had the chance to do it, and they didn't do it. Yes, that is correct. But what system is it that you're acknowledging still exists today that's broken? It's Obamacare. Every time you note that Republicans have had the chance to fix the problem but haven't, you're talking about the Obamacare system. and Chuck Schumer that was part of selling that scam, claiming people would die without it, are the same people that are telling sob stories about how people are going to die if they don't listen to him.
Consequences of what's happening in healthcare. And by his face and by the way he looked, I think he heard about them for the first time. The closing of rural hospitals, the fact that so many clinics are closing. And I don't know if he knew this before, but the fact that people will pay $4,000 more a year, $400 more a month, close to $5,000 more a year on their healthcare premiums if we don't do anything. And people don't know what to do. The average working family can't afford that. I told him how I met a mother who was crying to me because her daughter had cancer. And what has happened with healthcare, with what they have done, she's going to watch her daughter suffer and maybe die.
This is so tired. It is so exhausting. It's so depraved. These pieces of trash, like Chuck Schumer, like Elizabeth Warren, any and every one of these people that ran around, and Obamacare was the great solution. The audacity of him to talk about rural hospitals closing when there were plenty of us out there, either on the public airwaves or writing editorials noting how, among other things, one of the repercussions of Obamacare would be rural hospitals closing. And that's exactly what happens. And then who do they turn around and blame the system in place, which is their system, Obamacare. The unfortunate thing about it is I just do not believe it's going to get any better. I think that we're far beyond the peaking in terms of medical care in this country, because there no longer is a political party that says, no, the answer is less government. It's more government, just running it differently. You have, at this point, the Democrat Party that is pushing for full-scale Cuban-style medical, Venezuela-style medical health care, and then you have Republicans. It's like, well, not that much, but still some. And it means less efficient service, lower quality service, and more expensive service. And every one of those characteristics enhances year after year after year after year, which means it's going to get worse and cost more. And the answer is always going to be, who wants to throw more of our own money at the system that continues to get worse, just like education. Just like every other problem we have decided to tackle by letting government dictate it and throw money at it. Doesn't get better, it gets worse. And who suffers? You want to know the number one, what should be the biggest red flag to every American, that even they knew that this system would suck, is because they exempted themselves from it. When they pushed through Obamacare, every one of those people, like the Chuck Schumers and all of the others that pushed it through telling us how wonderful it was, they exempted themselves from it. Now, why would they do that? Because they knew what they were giving us. Coming up, I'll play Nancy Pelosi dropping the F-bomb. Sounds drunk, probably is, I don't know. That next. Hey, everyone. Vinegar Honda. 2025 Accord. Good old-fashioned gas Accord. Rates as low as 2.99%. The new Accord Hybrid, 51 miles per gallon, also available. 26 HRV, $299 a month. The 26 CRV, $399 a month. And a 2025 Civic hatchback as low as $340 per month. The Honda True Certified Dream Deal sales event rates as low as 0.99% on select 2022 23 models, featuring a 23 Pilot and then the Pinnaker Advantage. 20% off routine maintenance with purchase of new vehicle. That is just a taste of the deliciousness that is at Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 61. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 87. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 87.
There's this belief, and I think it's pretty obvious that in all likelihood it's true. And Tom Cotton, Senate Minority, or Tom Cotton is among others noting that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the only reason that he is even trying to play chicken with the White House on this thing is because of threats that Ocasio-Cortez is going to run against him. And he'll lose his power. He got really reamed last time around. There was a game of chicken going on in terms of budget, and Chuck Schumer caved. And in reality, it was another situation which was just continuing the Biden level spending. But because it was under Trump, and Trump is bad, they had to be opposed to it. And so that was a real last straw for a lot of Democrats in terms of Chuck Schumer, because they didn't see it as winning. And it's believed Ocasio-Cortez is going to try to primary the guy. And aside from this, I mean, just look how old and like he's bent over and just decrepit, and it's just, ugh. And as frightening as it may sound, it is New York. These are people that are going to put Mamdani in as the mayor of New York. And though Ocasio-Cortez, we would be dealing with the Senate. So you're talking about some of the areas of New York that aren't extreme leftist, but she is a Democrat. And who's the last Democrat senator from New York? Alphonse D'Amato, maybe? I mean, we could be talking back in the 90s. And I could be incorrect on that, but I suspect that I'm correct. It's been a very long time. Now, Trump spent time in New York, and he has certainly shown that erosion has occurred for the left because of their policies and what they've done in New York, and much of it would depend on who her opponent would be. But point being is, all of the theatrics that you're watching, many believe that this is simply Chuck Schumer trying to not look weak as further fire for Ocasio-Cortez and her supporters to fuel her run to unseat Chuck Schumer in the primary. How old? Will you look up how old he is anyway? Chuck Schumer.
Yes. Stand
I mean,
by.
because this is a 6-year term. I'm curious if I'm right about the last also.
74.
So he's 74 years old. So I guess he would be up next year around. So he'd be 81, 82. He just looks, when you look at Trump, a lot of these people are like, how old are they? I'm like, well, that's younger than Trump. But it's just such an unfair comparison because they seem 20 or 30 years older than Trump, even when they're younger than Trump oftentimes. Nancy Pelosi. I don't know whether she's drunk in this or not. I'll be honest. I really thought it was AI, but it was posted as an interview from the NBC affiliate Channel 10 in Boston on their YouTube page. And so that is the reason that I think it's actual video with an interview, and they're asking her about all of this in the budget shutdown.
Do you have confidence that this is really going to be? I have no idea. Well, going into it, let's review what the president has said. What we're talking about is meeting the healthcare needs of the American people, little babies, moms with breast cancer, dads with a stroke, and all of that. The president has said, I hear what they're saying. It's all unserious and ridiculous. In fact, I've listened to their and I tell them to go fuck themselves. So that's I can't believe I use that word. My kids will be shocked. My grandchildren will be further shocked. I'm just quoting the president of the United States.
So she's claiming that Trump acknowledged that all of this is what she said. Trump acknowledged that all these people are going to die, and he said, I don't give a blank. They can go F themselves. How are these people even taken seriously? This is the result of a culture and a society that increasingly has a significant portion of the population that has just picked one side and hates the other, and they don't care. They in order just to fuel their anger, they are told things that clearly don't even make sense oftentimes. From wine-soaked elderly women that half the time are so incoherent they don't make sense anyhow. And when you can piece together what they're saying, it is just so irrational and outside the realm of what even would that's what Donald Trump said to her. You have to be an insane lunatic to believe that. It's the upside of a political party that has transitioned its supporters from caring about their families and the quality of life that they and their families have, and transition them to just saying, no, we're the good guys. It doesn't matter how awful things are for you. You must support us. Once you latch into a person in that way, to where they no longer care about the truth, or even if things make sense, you can say anything you want, including what sounds like the drunk rantings of somebody who refuses to acknowledge that it's last call. And this is the Democrat Party of today. These people, they run around and they don't understand why average Americans connect more with Donald Trump than they do with Nancy Pelosi or Ocasio-Cortez or Tim Walz or Chuck Schumer. They really don't get it. Apparently they don't. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Josh with the Pyramid Roofing Company joined us out at Scramblers on Friday, and one of the things that he talked about was the recent storms that rolled through the listening area. Now, with the storms comes random door knockers attempting to take advantage of the situation. Oftentimes, they don't have your best interest in mind, and once you sign a contingency agreement with them, it is nearly impossible to get out of. Don't let that happen. Reach out to Josh. The Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections for you, and they work with you through that insurance process without making you sign anything. And you know, sometimes the best solution for you and your home, it's not a new roof install. Maybe it's a simple roof repair. And they will let you know that, and they're going to be upfront with you as well. So if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I was correct. The last U.S. Senator that was a Republican from New York was Alphonse D'Amato, elected in 81, served out until the end of the 90s. And I don't remember if this was the beginning of the end for him, but I just recall after the O.J. trial or during the O.J. trial, he was on Don Imus's show. And he was, I don't even remember the context other than they were talking about the trial. And those of you that remember the trial, Judge Ito, who was Asian, and Alphonse D'Amato was, I don't know if he was quoting or mimicking Judge Ito, but with the quote or mimic, he did the accent, and I just recall there being a lot of controversy over that. And that was sort of, I think, the beginning of an understanding that only people who are Democrats could do other people's accents. And generally not if it's a specific person. But like if you're in a black church, you can start to talk black. Or if you're in the South, pretend like you're... So you can just sort of stereotype voices. But that, again, is something that is only allowed as part of the privilege of being a Democrat. Republicans, conservatives certainly are not allowed to do that. So Trump and Hegseth are having this meeting, which... This is with top generals and the media, of course, making it into something that it's not. or making it seem like this is the most unusual thing here. My God, what's going on? This is without precedent. For everybody to be called together, oh my gosh, Donald Trump did something unprecedentedly? What? Let's see if I still have this headline up. I saw another headline. Maybe not. Oh, yeah. Trump Hegseth addressed generals in gathering without modern precedent. Well, so it must be wrong, because we're supposed to do everything exactly the same. No change whatsoever. No change. When it was first announced this was going to happen, it was portrayed as the entire world is nervous. They don't know what's going on here. My God. Calm down. Do you think how many freak-out moments the people on the left have created for themselves completely and unnecessarily? Trump speaking currently, Hegseth, some of his comments prior to Trump's at this meeting.
This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that.
It seems pretty obvious, focusing on things that work, discarding things that are a distraction from the things that work. What a lot of people don't understand, and this applies to any sort of public schools, for example. When Hegseth or anyone else notes this, gender ideology stuff, the climate change, all that, it's gone. It isn't gone because it is left-wing ideology. It's gone because it detracts from the purpose of our military. The military's purpose is to be very scary and very powerful. Something that makes other countries say, yeah, we don't want to mess with them, because they clearly can not only take us on, but they can whoop us good. And also, if for whatever reason somebody does decide they want to challenge us, we will whoop them in a fashion that will be a message to anyone else who even thinks about trying to take us on. Anything that distracts from that focus should not be part of the military. I don't care if it's left wing, right wing, up wing, down wing. The political leanings of it are irrelevant. If it distracts from that goal, it should be gone. Do you think that our military is more of a concern to countries like China and Russia when in the last several years they are pushing out propaganda with the toxic masculinity, showing how strong they are? That's at least the propaganda they put out, and particularly for their recruitment. In the meantime, our military literally was putting out cartoons about having two mommies, about the ability to be who I am and transition as a transgender in the military. Do you think that makes us more or less of a target to countries that want to take us on? It is absurd that anyone would think it is appropriate to focus on such things in the context of the military. Incidentally, that some of these reasons that they should not be, even aside from a focus, just even existing in military culture, are a lot of the same reasons that they should not exist in our education system, because they're a distraction from what helps our students learn to compete against kids from other countries. Do you think in these countries that are leaping over us in terms of kids being advanced in education beyond American or students from the United States of America, do you think they focus on all of this LGBT stuff and the gender fluidity and how do you? Of course not, because it's a distraction. It is a weight that makes it more difficult to advance. And these self-destructive behaviors that you can only imagine countries like China are just sitting back, watching, at least over the last several years, the United States destroy its own military, or at least begin the process of it. Fortunately, we have a lot of fantastic resources and technology that still give us a tremendous edge when it comes to these things, but the culture that the Obama administration and then the Biden administration cultivated, that literally pit, we would hear this, the DEI stuff, pit some Americans within the ranks of the military against others. By telling this group over here, well, because you look like this, you are the oppressed. And these guys over here and these gals, they're the oppressor. You guys are natural enemies to one another. What madness is that? To internally create divisions and strife in what should be a unified fighting force. We have, under the previous administration in particular, and Obama really helped get it kick-started, done more damage to our military than many countries like China and Russia could ever hope to do. And the fact that this administration is saying we're just not doing that anymore. We're going back to the way that it was. While it may not be a welcome sign to the communist Chinese and a welcome sign to Putin and a welcome sign to the Nancy Pelosi's and the Chuck Schumers and the Kamala Harrises, to those who understand the purpose of our military, it's more than welcome. Friday, broadcasting live, Farm Fest 2025, right outside the E-Plex, Ozark Empire Fairgrounds. Also doing a show Saturday morning, so tune in for that, along with Brad Pistole, host of Safe Money Radio, and we'll be checking in with Sandcrest Trailer Sales, Superior Metals, Springfield Livestock, and many more. St. Clair of the Ozarks, this will be the first time we're actually out there with those partners. We've been partners for a long time. I think Lori Rook will be out there. We'll talk to a lot of friends. That'll be Friday kicking off for Farm Fest. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.